On today's video, we're going to be learning if owning a firearm is the best option for the safety of your family. The safety of your family is a priority. However, due to political and economical incentives, much of the information that you're going to find on this topic will be heavily opinionated or looking to further some type of ideology. That is why on today's video, we're going to give you a level-headed and neutral standing on this topic, so that if you are on the fence about this topic, you can make a well-educated decision. Regardless of what people tell you, having firearms does not contribute to a safer environment. There's a lot of things you need to know before you make this decision, including the laws of the state or country that you currently live in, the mental health of yourself, your family, and those around you, any dependencies of any substance that anybody around you or yourself could have. And then there are unforeseen occurrences. And we're not just talking about violence taking place and you having to decide whether or not to use a firearm. We're talking about in your personal life, the loss of a job, the loss of a family member, or some type of domestic dispute. Many times, these traumatic experiences can happen to us unbeknownst and with little warning. The decision to have a firearm or to not have one is definitely one that you're going to give extensive consideration to. Many people, to spread their personal philosophies, will go around telling people that they need to be armed and encouraging other people to have weapons without knowing those people's particular situation, their mental health, their situation, that person's tendencies. You should never just assume that the decision to obtain a weapon is a light decision or one decision that you can encourage other people to make or try to persuade people to have it or to not have it. This is a personal decision that each individual has to think about extensively. And that is why on today's video, I'm not going to give you a definite yes or no answer. I'm going to present to you all of the things you need to consider so that you can make a decision that is best for your family. And as usual on our channel, we're going to start off by tackling some myths, misunderstandings that people spread without knowing the real truth behind these factors. People just assume that having guns, in particular here in the United States, is the safe thing to do. Little thought do they give to the actual statistical information. Americans just blindly believe that guns are the answer, and they even have statistics to prove it. The map in red is gun ownership by state. The light green map is the murder rate by state. You can see that on the east coast of the United States, the states with the highest gun ownership also have the highest murder rates. On the west coast, the areas that have a lot of gun ownership are mostly related to hunting or wildlife related reasons. Notice how despite many states in the northwest having a lot of gun ownership, they also have very low murder rates. The reason that people in the Northwest have guns are very different than the reason people in the Deep South have guns. Analytically, there is no correlation between safety and gun ownership. This map comparison clearly illustrates that. There are states with a lot of guns and very low murder rates, and there are states with a lot of guns and extremely high murder rates. There's absolutely no correlation. What could be attributed to this map is that there are states with good laws and there are states that have horrendous laws. The only state on the East Coast with a lot of guns and a low murder rate is West Virginia. However, the drug overdose rate in West Virginia is 4 times higher than the murder rate in Mississippi or Louisiana, the most unsafe places. So people are dying here, but they're dying in a different way. Also, the geography of West Virginia would make it more similar to a state like Montana or Idaho than to the surrounding states like Virginia or Ohio. West Virginia is, by its geography, a mountainous state, the only state on the East Coast that is entirely mountainous. So now that we understand that there's no correlation between gun ownership and murder rates, we can move forward with this dialogue understanding the biggest myth about guns is now debunked. As far as firearm enthusiasts, those who are using firearms for hunting and other outdoor activities, or to protect themselves from places where there are black bears, grizzly bears, or other type of natural threat, there's not much of an issue to address here. Outdoor activities and hunting are the prime, best, and most enjoyable way in which you should possess a weapon. We're now going to address misunderstandings that people have. Not all types of assaults and injury to person require the use of a firearm. Not only do people portray the ownership of guns as an establishment for safety, but they also advocate the unnecessary escalation and the notion that the reason you have a weapon is for self-defense. In reality, a vast majority of bad things that happen with weapons do not happen from the firearm enthusiasts who are using it for outdoor activities, hunting, or to protect themselves while going into wooded areas from animals. It's the idiots who think that introducing a weapon into a situation is going to all of a sudden make everything better. It's people who escalate situations needlessly and introduce weapons into situations that were unwarranted. Being assaulted by somebody physically is not a life-threatening situation. Even dealing with an unfolding crime does not exactly require this type of action or measure. This ideology of self-defense carrying is the reason that people are anxious and are waiting for an opportunity to escalate a situation because they have been taught that the reason they are concealed carrying a weapon is so that they can prevent something like this from happening. These are individuals eager to put into effect what they've been taught, that the reason that they're concealed carrying a weapon is so that they can save somebody's life. These blindsided people are looking for an opportunity to be able to have the quote legal right to use or to exhibit a weapon because they feel that this is what they've been taught. These are the people that escalate simple assaults into more aggravated crimes. These are the same type of people that are disarmed and killed with their own weapons because despite the fact that they're eager to prove to people that they're a big bad guy because they have artificial bravery, they are disarmed, their own weapons are used against them, or a situation that could have amounted to absolutely nothing turns into somebody being lost. Many times, the people that are advocating carrying weapons are also advocating the unnecessary escalation, preying on people's cowardly tendencies. Many people also find themselves making this decision for the first time because they are now living in a rural area and they have come from a city where they've never needed it. In that circumstance, the best option for you if you're looking at your first firearm is something as simple as a 12 gauge shotgun, which you're never going to take outside of your home. It's going to be in your home to walk outside to the garbage can at 3 in the morning. And I will tell you that when I lived in rural Alabama, it was not uncommon for me to go outside to take out my garbage and encounter a bunch of coyotes. But needless to say, I live in the suburbs in Florida now, and I go take my garbage outside at 3 in the morning, and there are coyotes literally across the street on an empty lot as well. So it's not like that really makes a difference. But I get it. If you're from the city and you've never been in the woods, it can definitely feel a little intimidating. Just give you this idolized imagery that we've seen in music videos, movies. All you have to do is turn on your computer, your TV, or your phone, and you're going to see people using handguns. It's glamorized. Rather, it's in video games, movies, music videos. You're daily exposed to seeing people using handguns in a context that you are realistically, hopefully, never going to find yourself in. And while we're talking about social media, if you do make the decision to purchase a weapon, never allow yourself to post it on social media. Whether you're trying to look cool for your Facebook friends or you're trying to intimidate other people, after you make the decision that you are going to have a firearm, you do not need to be vocal about owning that weapon. In fact, doing so can make you a target for criminals. You would not believe how many people purposely go after people who have weapons to commit robberies. If you do make the decision to purchase or become a firearm owner, do not post it on social media. You don't need to put a sticker on the bumper of your car. Let your neighbors know you have it. Engage in conversations with people about it. Encourage other people to also have them. If you really and thoroughly are convinced that the reason that you have it is for your personal safety, the moment that you talk about it or let people know you have it, you are eliminating from yourself the prime element in which a concealed weapon becomes powerful is in the fact that it is concealed. The moment it is no longer concealed because it can be visible or because you tell other people you have it on you, it becomes powerless. If somebody really is going to hurt you, the element of surprise, the concealed carry power, is taken away the moment the party engaging you knows that you have it on you. The fundamental ideology behind the power of a concealed carry is that it is concealed. The moment you post it on social media or unnecessarily extract the weapon and show it to other people in a situation that it's unwarranted, you are losing the power, the element of surprise. You lose the ability to catch the other party unprepared. So I strongly advise you, if you do go with the decision to have this, you don't have to post it on social media for your friends to see. If the real reason that you have it concealed is in the rare occasion that life is at stake and you have to make a split-second decision, what is the point of making a billboard of the fact that you now have a weapon? In fact, it is no surprise if you watch the news that many people who themselves become victims of violence are the same people that on social media are portraying what people. I have spent over 25 years in the vicinity of the state of Florida. At no point in this time period have I ever been in a situation where I needed to extract a weapon for my safety. It is realistically never going to happen. And for about 20 of those years, I was going into the Florida Everglades where there's bears, gators, snakes, and many more natural threats. And during all those expeditions, many times even at night, I never carried it with me, knowing that the safest option was to carry. Back then, my stance was to never carry. I just didn't like having it, so I never carried it, even though I was going into the Florida Everglades many times at night, places that are not only dangerous from animals, they're also extraordinarily isolated with no phone signal, which means if somebody did want to victimize me, it would have been very easy for them to do it. And in 20 years of exploring the Florida Everglades, never once did I ever really need it. Then I spent 1 year in Alabama where I couldn't even tell you how many times I had to display a weapon to ensure my safety. 20 some years in Florida, I never needed it, never even crossed my mind. 1 year in Alabama, you couldn't go to the grocery store without it. If you live in a place where you have to have it to go to the grocery store, the answer isn't to become an arsenal. The answer is to move somewhere safer with your family. Because if the place where you live is that dangerous, there's no weapon in the world that's going to protect you. The people are evil, and the best thing you could do if you really care about the safety of your family, it's not to arm yourself infinitely. It is to move somewhere safer. Now, when I come back to Florida, Florida's laws are changing, and I really don't understand why the state in the South with the lowest murder rate, with the exception of Texas, but Texas has a lot of those rural areas we talked about. I mean, the western part of Texas is absolutely nothing. It's really remarkable that Florida, being in the South, has just a low murder rate. And I find it perplexing that despite Florida having the lowest murder rates on this side of the South, that it would start to make laws to imitate states that have double the murder rates. It's almost like if the safety of families is no longer the priority, but catering to people's political ideologies. Instead of bravely confronting people man to man like you should, instead of trying to de-escalate situations, instead of trying to divert situations to avoid problems, your cowardly instinct and paranoia becomes one single cowardly action: to always be reaching and to always be contemplating the most cowardly act you could possibly engage in. Because there's nothing more cowardly than to completely eliminate a threat by the push of a button. So many people just have the notion that they're going to pounce on any opportunity they can to escalate a situation needlessly, when the option to flee, disarm, run away, disengage, or just move somewhere safer are always on the table. Why people are so enthusiastic about committing the most cowardly act is hard to comprehend. People idolize the opportunity to be able to escalate a situation and be able to do this as if having this underneath their belt makes them feel like a greater person or a more powerful, respected being. I don't want to tell you that I've been on the receiving and on the giving side of those situations. Even somebody's grandma will be willing to pop a fool in the butt if it comes down to protecting their life. There's nothing brave about popping somebody if you're within your legal right. I mean, you can break into an 88-year-old grandma's house and you can get popped by an 80-year-old woman. There's nothing endemically brave about doing this act if it's within your legal capacity. If you have a quarter of a brain cell, you would know if you're on the giving end of that, even if it's self-defense, it's possibly best not to even talk about it. If it does happen to you, you're really not going to talk about it. At how people use their guns to intimidate other people, impose themselves, aggravate other people, or to make political messages. If you've lived in one of these places, you know what I'm talking about. I lived in Kentucky when I was growing up, and I had friends who would go hunting. They obviously had hunting rifles. Their culture was based around the sporting and outdoor activity aspect. When I lived in Alabama, these people were not hunting. They were just trying to intimidate and persuade you that their gun culture was something that you needed to embrace, despite the fact that the crime rates in that area were a clear indication that this crap didn't make any sense. Hispanics are the least likely group to have guns. However, African Americans are the most likely to be the victims of gun violence. Because Hispanics are known to be the group least likely to be armed, they are many times targeted by criminals at disproportionately higher rates. While living in Alabama, many of the people living there just assumed because I was Hispanic that I would be unarmed and would make a very easy victim. Ironically, while living in Florida, this was never really a problem for me. And today in the United States, the group that is most armed and in most fear all the time is actually the group that is less likely to ever be targeted as a victim of a crime on a street level. There's also some geographical things you have to understand when looking at these analytics, like many of the white people are more likely to be in those rural areas where many times having a gun is not optional but mandatory, whether for hunting, subsistence living, or simply for protecting yourself from wildlife. Hispanics, most likely living in urban areas, are not going to find themselves needing, quote unquote, to have a gun on them. And many of the ones who do arm themselves are not doing it for their safety or doing it for some type of political views they have. At least in Florida, the Hispanics that I have met that are armed are simply some of the most cowardly people I've ever met, who think because now they have this, that they have a badge of artificial bravery or something that's going to make them a Superman. So over the course of my lifetime, the vast majority of times that I've seen people use weapons have been, to me, in my personal experience, in very cowardly ways to intimidate other people, and definitely not the type of people that would actually even do it if it came down to it. So to me, my personal opinion about most gun owners is that they are just irresponsible. They are not caring about anybody. They're really not doing it for their safety. They're doing it because they're scared. Being around a lot of guns for the first time in my life was living in Alabama, and I would describe it as paranoia, fear, cowardliness, and I still maintain that the gun owner who possibly deserves the most respect is the one that's a concealed carrier who you will never know they have it. When I lived in Louisville, Kentucky, my best friend, he was this young Haitian kid. We were probably 9 or 10 years old. He had a 1-year-old sister. My mom used to babysit him and his sister. Me and him were best friends. My mom would babysit him, and after school, me and him would play all day together. And his dad was actually a taxi driver who was robbed for $20 and killed. You know, at 9 or 10 years old, for your best friend's dad to be killed in a robbery was really difficult for me. And after this event happened, I never saw him or his little sister again. I guess they might have moved to Florida or gone somewhere else, but I never saw them again. He was my best friend, and after his dad was murdered, I never saw him again. It was really difficult for me, and it was really sad at that age to wrap my mind around gun violence. And this happened on Kingston Drive, right next to where I used to live. This was behind the building where I first lived when I moved to the United States, so it happened in a place I was familiar with. And actually, looking back on the police report, it may not have been this woman. It was actually a previous case. This one's out of 2005. There was an earlier case mentioned in the article. My friends would have been the earlier case, not the case out of 2005. So it seems like robbing taxi drivers in Louisville, Kentucky, in these apartment complexes is a reoccurring theme, since over the years there's been more than one victim. This right here would have been my friend's dad in 2002. So it says in 2002, another man was murdered in the same apartment complex, so that explains the confusion. He wasn't the only Haitian man killed here. Over the years, just that I know about, I can think about 7 murders that happened in these apartments in Louisville, Kentucky, where I used to live. It really was a horrendous place to live, and a lot of people that we knew were lost to gun violence here in Louisville, Kentucky. The state of Florida has a higher murder rate, and it also has a higher firearm fatality rate than California. California is actually among the states with the least firearm fatalities in the entire country. Now, the firearm mortality rate is actually pretty high in the Northwest as well, in Wyoming and in Montana. This includes a wider array of crimes, may it be police related or may it be self-inflicted. So we can see that when we look at this map, the Northeast and California actually have the least murders by gun, which kind of debunks the entire theory that people have that being armed makes your life safer. And as you can see, the south central part of the country, that's where all the bad stuff is going on. So you can see that the real analytics on these types of crimes don't match with what's being told to people. People are just being told what they want to be told. They believe these things, but the real analytics don't add up to what people are telling you. It's great that other people are armed in society with good intentions. There's nothing wrong with that. Good for them and their good intentions, but don't let it be in your household and your family where other things could arise, both accidents, accidental discharges, and other more unfortunate things we're not going to get into. It's a crappy world we live in where we even have to make a video on this topic, but remember, if you do decide to go with the option, don't put it on social media. Don't let people know you have it. Don't go out there and try to advertise that everybody needs to have it. That is a personal decision. It's going to be based on every single family's circumstances. Of course, the reality of these analytics isn't something people are going to put you in touch with. This is something people don't want to talk about because they want to perpetrate their ideology upon other people. But on our channel, we just give you the raw facts. And here at the end of the video, you can see what the raw facts are. Clearly, this is self-explanatory.